What is up, everybody? I'm Just Wayne, and welcome to the Just Wayne Show. And today I want to talk about what would be the biggest story on socials if it were not for the fact that the writers of the season finale of America in 2024 are going ham. And so today I want to talk about the TikTok ban in an episode I'm calling TikTok on the Clock.
For your attention, please. Can I have your attention, please? Everybody just look at me. Everybody just look at me. I day trade attention. Shout out to Gary V. Respond to every mention. You can find me on your FYP. Before 2020, I was doing the most.
Once again, thank you so much for listening wherever you happen to be listening. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate it so much. I want to talk to you today about the TikTok ban that's going to happen on January 19th of 2025. The season finale of 2024 is going out with a bang. There's so many different things that are happening, and I plan to cover a bunch of them on my TikTok, hilariously. But before I get to that, I do want to talk about something else that's happened in the world, and that's President Joe Biden, who a little over a week ago made the announcement that he's going to be pardoning his son, Hunter Biden. Now, first of all, as a parent, this makes total sense to me. And also, the entire time, I had a feeling this was going to happen. I didn't understand the political game that President Biden was playing, where he was consistently saying that he wasn't going to pardon his son. I understood letting the process play out, as he should have. But what President Biden began to understand through the statement that he released and through his surrogates who have gone into the media is that the landscape of what is going to happen in a Trump presidency is different. When he was making the statements before saying that he wasn't going to pardon Hunter over the charges for having a weapon, even though he knew that he was using, and signed a document saying that he was not using drugs at the time, the crime itself would probably not have been prosecuted if he were not Hunter Biden. This is what legal experts are saying. And also, when President Biden was saying that he wasn't going to pardon his son, there was a hope that Vice President Kamala Harris would become president of these United States, and that a Democratic attorney general, a Democratic administration would come in, and that Hunter would just experience a real life set of consequences for these crimes. Unfortunately, Donald Trump won the presidency, and the people he is looking to put in charge of DOJ, at first he said Matt Gaetz, the person that he is looking to put over the FBI, who has openly said that he's going to go after anyone who is anti-Trump, the recognition in reality that the Biden family will be a target of the Trump administration, as they have spoken for years on Fox News and Newsmax and OAN about the Biden crime family, and have tried to litigate this over and over again. There's a reality that President Biden was looking at and understood that with the administration that's coming in, with the Justice Department officials that are coming in, with the person who will possibly be in charge of the FBI, that there is no scenario in which Hunter is dealt with justly. There's no scenario in which the family will not be dealt with justly. And given the landscape of the things that he was seeing, he made the decision, despite his previous pleas and promises, to go ahead and pardon his son. Now, this makes total sense to me, and I honestly think it was the right move. I don't fault him for saying, I don't plan on doing this. I wish he would have said, I don't plan on doing this, instead of, I unequivocally won't. That's beside the point. I don't fault him for saying that he wasn't planning to do it. I also don't fault him for doing it, because nuance is important. Context is everything. That's something my dad told me when I was a kid, is that whatever you're dealing with, context is everything. And so given that, I understand why he did what he did. But that leads me to a certain reality, which is, with the Trump administration coming in, there is very few spaces that are as democratized in the way that ideas can be spread as TikTok. I don't fully understand, to be honest with you, what Congress or President Biden saw that made them say that TikTok is a threat to national security. A lot of us just wish they would tell us. Like, a lot of us are just like, if you would just tell us what the security threat is or put some mechanisms in place, then great. But 170 million Americans use TikTok for the most part every day. And there was some threat that is perceived to have been out there. So as a part of a national security package that was passed by both the House and the Senate and signed into law by President Biden, as a part of that, TikTok is on the chopping block. And I wish they would tell us what that thing is, but I'm going to presume there's something I just don't know that led to them making that decision. And yet, there are some stark realities about what is going to happen in a Trump administration that I wish, in the same way that President Biden considered the implications in pardoning his son, he would consider the implications in the way that this particular app being banned matters. I want to talk about 3 different sets of implications and why this is the absolute worst time for this thing to happen. The first is the political implications. Like I said, Donald Trump is going to become president on January 20th. TikTok is going to get banned on January 19th. Now, there's a lot of speculation about what that means. Does that mean that it's going to disappear off the app? Not necessarily. It just means that the App Store might not host it or hold it any longer. There's also some logistical nightmares on that, since 170 million people use it, that I think we're going to find out some of those logistics in the coming weeks. But regardless, on January 19th, it is set to be banned. On January 20th, Donald Trump is set to become the president of these United States. That is an awful timing for this, because one of the things that helped us get through the pandemic and actually hear consistently what was happening and get opinions and insight on what was happening in an algorithmic way was TikTok. Many people don't remember, but TikTok really took off in 2020. It started off as people trying to figure out what to do during the pandemic and being bored in the house, and I'm in the house bored. But also it gave us the space to be able to discuss the political realities of what were happening and the impact in a way that felt much more than what was happening in mainstream media spaces. There's also this reality that I've watched more congressional hearings in my For You page than I've ever watched in my life. That there's an accessibility that comes from the fact that C-SPAN is on TikTok, that CNN, MSNBC, Fox, OAN, Newsmax, like all of them are NBC News, ABC News, they're all on TikTok, and they're clipping very specifically so we get the news in these scrollable ways. That doesn't require us to sit down at our TV and watch an hour-long segment. And so as we're getting into the confirmation process with this new administration, the reality is our direct access to seeing those clips in that way is being taken. The reality that the confirmation process for, let's be clear, the worst people possible for each job. Like, as I've been watching the people that Donald Trump has put forward, it's not just I disagree with them politically. That was the last administration. There were a lot of people that Donald Trump put forward to be in roles that I was like, oh, I just disagree with that guy. I disagree with that woman. I disagree with that person. This is deeper than that. This person wants to fundamentally dismantle and undo everything that makes America America. And you're going to put that person in charge. The jokes have been phenomenal on all of the different socials of, like, you know, putting Cruella de Vil in charge of the Humane Society, right? Like just the realities, right? That like so much of this process has been putting the worst people possible in place. And our direct access to being able to see consistently the elements of the confirmation process, to not only know what's happening, but to be able to contact our Congress folks and hold them accountable for how they vote. That is an element, an aspect of what we're getting through this current space. And so recognizing that there is a regime coming into power who is committed to doing the bad thing, to making this the bad place. Our access to information is necessary, which also leads me to another element of this political reality, is how much misinformation comes from the White House. If you remember, right after Donald Trump was inaugurated in 2017, Sean Spicer got up on the press dais in the press briefing room and was like, Donald Trump had the biggest inauguration ever, period. And we were like, you just lied, right? Like I seen it. Like we all knew he was lying, but it set a precedent. And that precedent was that the Trump administration will have no problem, not just withholding information in the political process, as all political parties and every White House has done, but to come out and to blatantly lie to the American people. And the problem with that is, for some reason, mainstream media outlets are committed to normalizing. I saw a headline this morning of an editor at the LA Times who quit as the Times made an announcement to the organization they need to be more balanced. And in his statement, he said that this is not the time for balance. The reality is that mainstream media outlets and sources are trying their hardest to normalize Trump because you got to respect the office of the president. And that thinking puts us all in danger when that is our only source of information. And so being able to have a diversity of voices, a diversity of ways of being able to get those voices is literally being taken from us at the worst possible time. So political implications are stark and they're deep. Donald Trump is looking to enact a plan that will fundamentally disrupt and dismantle America as we know it. Like, that's not hyperbole. That's reality. And in that moment, regardless of what the implications were before, regardless of the context were before, the political realities make it so that this is the wrong time to do this. Now, with those political implications and a Donald Trump presidency, we have to recognize the economic implications, which is my second point. The economic implications of a Trump presidency are egregious. The number of people who were Googling, what is a tariff after the election? Or can I change my vote after the election? And it's like, Google is free. You had all this time and all this opportunity to give all this information to make the most informed decision possible. And only afterward, I was reading an article in the Washington Post to talk about all of the different items that will be impacted by the fact that Donald Trump was to put a 25% tariff on Mexico, Canada, and a 35% tariff on China. Which the Mexican president was like, you want to go tariff for tariff? We'll go tariff for tariff. What you want to do? Now, as a person who consumes a lot of avocado, all right, I'm a millennial. I don't even make avocado toast. I meal prep, you know what I'm saying? And my meal prep is like a burrito bowl. It's a cilantro rice, pinto beans, corn, chicken, and then avocado. You know, I got to get all my macros and everything. And I'm just sitting here going, that one item that I literally eat 4 times a week is going to be more expensive. And all I heard for months was that gas and eggs were too expensive. And a vote for Donald Trump was a vote for making life less expensive. And now Donald Trump is admitting, oh no, life's going to get more expensive, but like for the good of the country somehow. And so life is going to get more expensive. There's going to be another corporate tax cut that comes into play. And that corporate tax cut is literally going to incentivize the way that companies have been price gouging. They're going to make more money and they're not going to cut prices when they do. We are 40 years, 44 in fact, into the idea of trickle-down economics. And it's never worked. And it's a wild idea. Like, I'm going to give rich people money and then they're going to like make it rain. Like, it's Young Wayne on them, AKA Mr. Make It Rain on, like, that's the expectation? And so here we are, getting ready to find ourselves in an economic experience that will be harmful. It's going to be more expensive to live than it was last year between the tariffs and the tax cuts. And guess what? When the tariffs don't bring in enough money and the tax cuts diminish revenue, 2 things are going to happen. Programs that people need are going to get cut, and taxes in the middle class are going to rise. It's just math. And so in a space where it is not going to be a good time economically for a lot of people, that is when a source of income for folks is going to get cut. And the wild part is Trump's just going to blame Biden. Biden gave me this economy. The economy was booming when I was president, frankly. But then Sleepy Joe came in and just disrupted everything that I had done. And frankly, it's going to take years to fix this mess, which is why I'm going to run for a 3rd term, right? Like, it's just in this space. I am a divorced dad of 4. And I am struggling. And so this year, after making TikToks for several years, I was able to join the creator program. And I didn't really think much of it. In 2023, my TikToks really hadn't popped off like that. And then Drake decided to throw shots at Kendrick Lamar. And for some reason, the algorithm chose me as the person everybody wanted to hear about that. And from May until now, I have been able to supplement the income that I give out as a part of my divorce, as a part of being a father, right? I've been able to supplement that income through TikTok. I don't know how I would have survived this year financially if it were not for the fact that I was a part of the creator program and I was actually making money because of the content I create. I've done the math. I don't know how. And that's not just me. There are creators who are trying to figure out what to do right now because Instagram don't want to pay people. YouTube's not the same type of product. And so many of us have built our platform brick by brick to get to this point. And now the source of income is gone, not to mention the TikTok shop. So you've got folks who have used the TikTok shop as a way to make supplemental income while being at home. And so when those folks no longer have access to that income, who have been at home with their children, presumably, not only does that mean they need to return to the workforce in order to make up for the supplemental income that they're losing, but they also now need childcare. So we create a job crisis in an awful job market, mind you. Like, ask anybody who's actively looking for work. It's hard. And what's more difficult about it is a lot of companies have moved to AI to screen the applications that are coming in. And I saw recently an article about how an HR person got fired because the AI algorithm that was used to screen applicants wouldn't even have let the manager of the team that was hiring through. And so folks are not getting interviews. When they're getting interviews, they're going to the third, fourth, fifth, sixth interview and then not getting the job. And it's taking months. And so people are not getting work at the level that they feel like they need to be able to get work. So the job market is bad. We're losing income. Childcare is expensive. Like, this is actually a detrimental thing for Americans. And so while I'm hearing all this rhetoric about data and national security, I need people to understand that the economic impact of eliminating this for millions of people is stark. In a time when we will be living under a type of economic plan that is detrimental. Trump's tax plan screwed a lot of us. We're still under it. It's set to expire, but guess what? We're going to get another one from him. So we're going to awful tax plan for the middle class, combined with tariffs, which are going to rise prices in the middle class. And then we're going to see, while that's happening, the elimination of income for people. The economic impact is ridiculous. And when you recognize that there's a political wild, wild west happening out there, I felt very the wild, wild west. There's a political wild, wild west that's happening out there. And there are economic implications as a result of the politics. What happens is that there's these revolutionary ideologies that begin to arise, which is my third point, the revolutionary implications. When the economy is in the situation that it's in, and politics starts to feel more and more fascist and starts to feel like Michael Jackson, all I want to say is that they don't really care about us. When that's happening, people begin to think differently about how we interact with the government. And then you insert the news of last week where the CEO of United Healthcare is literally murked in broad daylight in New York City. And the response was, and what's been wild to me is watching people who are going to be okay no matter what politically, sitting back and going, this is not okay. Why are we responding this way? Now, I'm going to keep it a sec. I have been real quiet about this because it's nuanced. What I do understand is that when the economics and the politics feel like they disenfranchise people, people are more prone to think from a revolutionary standpoint. And when people think from a revolutionary standpoint, revolutions are almost always endued with violence. And so as a person who, listen, everybody hates private insurance except for rich people. Like, I don't know anyone who's like, you know what, I really just, my insurance policy is just, right? Because we've all had experiences where we had to go get something done, right? Had to go to the doctor for some reason. And all of a sudden it's like, how did you pay 80 cents of this appointment and I got to pay the other 2,000? How does that make sense? And so when there's a collective reality of the economic implications of what happens in healthcare, when an incident like the murder of the United Healthcare CEO happens, the response is very much thoughts and prayers. And I'm not going to lie, the idea of I would give thoughts and prayers, but they're not covered was wild. But when revolutions like this happen, as we're seeing governments topple all over the world, the revolution will not be televised. Because if you watch mainstream media, what you'll see is the very people who benefit either way. Because if Trump's presidency is absurd, it drives numbers and ratings to CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, etc. There's a benefit to the wildness. And so when these things happen, they're like, oh my gosh, why are people responding this way? But then when you log on to TikTok and you hear the discourse, it's like, I do understand why people are responding this way because we're normal people talking to each other. Even watching Ben Shapiro's comment section turn on him as they're like, bro, how are you not understanding what's happening? And he's like, well, this is just the radical left reveling in their violent tendencies. And I'm like, bro, radical groups are violent. I would like to remind you of January 6, 2021. And also, this is not a left or right issue. This is a rich and poor issue. And the reality is that the richest people are trying to control the government. That's what's happening in the Trump administration. And there are very few outlets to be able to have conversations about the implications and the impact of that. And so when you have a space that gives us this collective class solidarity, and information is free flowing, and people can candidly and also jokingly share, like that is something that cannot be controlled otherwise. So revolution will not be televised, but it is streamed on TikTok. It is live streamed. The revolution will not be televised, but it shows up in our For You page. The revolution will not be televised, but it's shared between groups of people. And the access to the information is so different than where it was if this were not going to be a Trump administration. And I'm going to be very clear, this is once again not a left-right thing. If a normal Republican was becoming president, I would not be sounding the alarm at the level that I am. But if you watch me, you know I've been sounding the alarm for years about the impact of Trumpism on America. So here it is. The reality of what the future looks like has changed. Something has changed within me, to quote Elphaba. Like the realities that existed when this bill was being passed. And I still thought this was egregious overreach in the first place. But the political realities of a Trump presidency without the free flowing of information, the economic implications of a Trump presidency without the reality of having the supplemental income that many of us have worked hard to build, and the revolutionary implications of class solidarity in the face of billionaires trying to take over the government and having access to the information about what's really going on the ground in these places. Something's changed. We're not in the same place we were. And if I can look at the reality of the politics associated with Hunter Biden and understand Joe Biden changing his mind, I can also look at the reality of 2025 and say, this is wrong. Banning this app isn't just banning something that we're doing TikTok dances on, right? It's not just banning this place where people do like dumb trends and stuff. It's banning a place where politics, economics, and revolution meet. And for so many of us, it's banning our refuge. It's banning a place where so many of us have found ourselves, found our tribe. It's banning a place that just gives us the ability to escape for a second from the realities that are happening around us. It just feels like taking something away that means so much for no reason given at all. And so it's probably too late at this point. And if you know me, I have been a fan of the Biden administration. I think the Biden administration has done more good than gets talked about. But this is a place where I wish Joe Biden would just change his mind like he did for Hunter and give a pardon to us all. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Today's episode of The Just Wayne Show was written by me, Just Wayne. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, tell a friend about the show, and engage on socials. It is Just Wayne Creative on all platforms. The theme music is Attention, also by me, Just Wayne. I'll see you back on Thursday talking about whatever's happening in the world. So until next time, thank you so much for coming to my TED.